I think that brands need to earn the right to be a part of people's lives, to be a part of mom's life in this conversation.
If healthcare organizations are still only talking about AI for the sake of efficiency, then they're having the wrong conversation.
Wellness has become one of the most powerful forces helping to shape modern marketing. Consumers aren't just buying products anymore. They're buying better lifestyles, better habits, and better versions of themselves. Welcome to Wellness, Work, and Wellbeing, the podcast exploring the intersection of wellness, brands, culture, and modern marketing.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of Wellness, Work, and Wellbeing. I'm joined by Kamal Bhandal, SVP of Global Invisalign Brand. And today we're going to explore how the modern Chief Household Officer is reshaping healthcare marketing. We talk about earning trust instead of demanding attention, why education is becoming the foundation of great healthcare brands, and how the shift towards proactive wellness is changing the way people think about their own health. It's a conversation about where healthcare, marketing, and well-being are headed next. Hello, Kamal. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me here today.
All right, so this is not going to be new to anybody, but could you go over your job and your company and what you do here? I'm very excited to talk to you today, but let's give everyone a surprise.
Sure thing. So I lead the global Invisalign brand strategy worldwide and also the Americas marketing team. And hopefully for all of your listeners here, people are familiar with Invisalign clear aligners. The Invisalign system is the most advanced clear aligner system in the world. We are trusted by more than 22 million people worldwide and the number one doctor recommended clear aligner brand. So effectively, the doctor sits at the center of the treatment plan for you, whether you're getting Invisalign for yourself, for your child, or influencing a friend or a partner. And then that doctor really works with us to create that treatment plan that is customized according to your needs. And then you work with your doctor to ensure that you're getting the smile that you've always wanted.
And you're really at the forefront of a culture shift here. Let's start with something that really caught my attention. The Chief Household Officer, this idea that we're replacing the old soccer mom stereotype. What has fundamentally changed with Invisalign's introduction, but also just generally, what's fundamentally changed about this consumer, and why do so many brands still market to her as if it's 2015?
Well, it's such a really interesting topic. You know, when you think about the chief household officer, brands have really depicted that mom as a mom who is a soccer mom, drives a minivan, and is pretty one-dimensional. And when you think about that mom today, what you really find is she is hardly one-dimensional. In fact, she is multidimensional and multi-threat all in one. She's balancing the career, she's balancing the household, she is making the financial decisions oftentimes, she's making the household decisions oftentimes, and the healthcare decisions upwards of 80% of the time as well. And so I think that brands have an opportunity to really understand her at her core for all of the dimensions that make up who she is. Because the modern chief household officer today, or the mom, if that is her, in some cases it's not her, but if it is her, she is far more multidimensional than just being a household caretaker in the way that perhaps media has portrayed her in the past.
I 100% agree. As moms in that sphere, I don't know one mom, trying to think if I know any of them, who haven't taken their kids in to get Invisalign and then ended up not doing it themselves or taking care of themselves as well, or they've working, and it's a full house contribution to the entire
commitment to Invisalign. And it's interesting how the mom, absolutely is making the financial decisions and where everyone's going and, does the whiteboard calendar. And often, if we're talking about like these influences here, you call it the momgorithm, which I love. Modern parents are getting recommendations from creators, private Facebook groups, TikTok comments, and group texts long before they ever visit a brand's website or go to the orthodontist. They already informed before they get there. How does that completely change the way a brand like Invisalign has to earn that trust?
Well, I think there's two really important things that you just said that I want to zero in on. The first is earning trust. I think that brands need to earn the right to be a part of people's lives, to be a part of mom's life in this conversation. And the second thing is really thinking about that momgorithm in such a way that acknowledges that the journey to purchase and the journey for brand consideration isn't a linear journey. In the same way that you just described it, the algorithm behind mom's decision making is really multifactorial. It's multifactorial in that it is influenced by friends, by family, her own research, her own perceptions, and it's taking all of those considerations into play as we think about how do we reach her in a way that is going to be relevant to her so that we do earn the right to be a part of her consideration set and then ultimately a part of her life. So from a brand standpoint, I think it first starts with acknowledging that we have to earn the right to be a part of her life, and two, acknowledging that the path to earning that right and that trust to make it into the consideration set is multifactorial. We cannot speak at her anymore, and we really have to find a way to participate in her life, in her world, and figure out what role does the brand play in being relevant in her life and craft our communications in a way that is going to integrate with her life. So I think the shift there is shifting from talking at her to actually creating conversations with her.
I agree. Absolutely. Well, and what's interesting, and Invisalign's a perfect example of this, if I may say so, is that you're not adding another thing to do. You're actually taking away. So the last thing a busy chief household officer, the last thing the CHO needs is another thing to keep track of, another thing to add to her list of things to do. And then one thing I love about Invisalign is that the kid can just know to swap it out every week or every other week or whatever it was and just get it done. And it's not one more thing to have to manage. It's not one more thing to have to keep track of. It's already kept track by Invisalign. So we don't have to add that to the list of things to do. And I think that when you're developing a brand trust, for example, and doing like marketing 101, you have to know your audience, you have to create an emotional connection, and then you create a habit. That's already done in the product. It's already done.
I love that. I think that you're speaking from personal experience here, and I think you just summed it up quite nicely.
It works. It just works. One of the more interesting shifts is that moms are no longer putting themselves at the bottom of the priority list anymore. And this is a good example of that. I don't want to add on one more thing, but sometimes maybe I want this for myself as well. Or, I have to think of my health as well, or I'm not going to be able to manage this household. So we're investing a lot more in our own confidence and well-being while also making healthcare decisions for the kids. How has that changed the way you think about marketing and storytelling? If you're not talking at her, how do you integrate all of this?
So I'll take it back to really trying to earn the right to be a part of her life and not talking at her, but actually co-creating with her and inviting her into the conversation. So one of the things that we spend a tremendous amount of time with is actually speaking to moms directly and understanding what her life is like. And so we've got a mom advisory board that we work with on the regular. It's been one of the core pinnacles of the brand from the early days. And what that has really helped us with is really keeping pulse on how her life is changing. And with that, one of the things that we're starting to see is this multidimensional mom who is thinking about not just the well-being of her kids, which of course is of utmost importance, but she's also thinking about herself, right? And especially as those kids grow into older ages where they are a little bit more self-sufficient, she's starting to realize, what about my own health and wellness? And with that, when you think about Invisalign and straight teeth, one of the key areas that people usually associate Invisalign with is a cosmetic benefit. And we always say that that cosmetic benefit is there, but the reality is that that cosmetic benefit is just along for the ride. One of the real reasons why you'd want to straighten your teeth is for the health benefits, right? And there's a tremendous amount of evidence that's starting to come out that really shows the linkage between your oral health as well as your heart health, which then leads to your overall health. So she is starting to see this science come through. She's starting to see the evidence. And when she is thinking about her own health and taking care of herself, what we are also really delighted to see is her paying attention to the role that her oral health is playing in her overall health. And that starts to lead to that conversation around straightening your teeth. And then, of course, with Invisalign being the most advanced clear aligner system in the world, she really looks to the Invisalign brand as that trusted brand. And it becomes a natural conversation for her to have as well, which we are super excited about.
I love that. And that is following this shift where a lot of medicine has gotten into this habit of solving a problem. You come up with an issue, and orthodontia is this connection to periodontal where, I've always been an avid flosser, but we do find that the easier your teeth are aligned together, the easier it is to floss, the easier it is to keep your gums healthy. And then like you said, it's connected to your endocrine system and everything else if you don't keep it healthy. It's fascinating. So if healthcare has been traditionally solving a problem, we've got Invisalign trying to help, or in the middle again of this culture shift of today's consumers expect to fit naturally into their daily routines and lifestyles, and are trying to have a more holistic and preventative medicine outlook. How do you market a healthcare product as something that enhances everyday life rather than simply fixes an issue?
So I think first, the good news is that consumers are already headed there, right? Whether it's a mom, whether it's someone who's not a mom and just thinking about herself or himself, as we think about the shift that's occurring in the marketplace, you do see a shift going from being reactive to being much more proactive and wanting to be more knowledgeable, more educated, more in charge of your own health. And so the good news is that the consumer trends are headed that way as well. And as people are thinking about their health stack, and they might be thinking about all sorts of things, all sorts of products that are included in their health stack, what's exciting for us is that the Invisalign brand and Invisalign aligners are becoming a core part of that health stack. So to answer your question around how do we actually market to them, it first starts with a very education-centric approach. And that education-centric approach is bringing forward the facts, as you stated, that link straight teeth and oral health and overall health together. The American Heart Association is a great example of an organization that understands this deeply, as they state that healthy hearts start with healthy smiles. And in addition to that, one of the other areas that we've been very focused on innovating around is ensuring that that education takes shape and comes to life in the doctor's practice itself. So on the iTero Lumina scanner, which is the scanner that is owned by Align Technology, there is a Invisalign oral health scan. And that oral health scan helps illustrate and illuminate for you 4 key dimensions of oral health: your tooth health, your gum health, the alignment of your teeth as well as the alignment of your bite so that you can truly see what your doctor sees when they examine your oral health. And what this does is it gives people a baseline of truly understanding where they are with their oral health so that they can then have the appropriate conversation with their doctor to determine what steps, if any, are then needed at that particular moment in time. So as we go back to your question, to me, it really starts with education being at the center and ensuring that people understand what the science is saying, and then what tools they have, like the Invisalign oral health scan, that will help them better understand their overall oral health.
Wow, you're blowing my mind here. That's like when my optometrist told me like the vascular system in your eyeball was related to the vascular system in your whole body and your overall health. I didn't had no idea that they could scan it and have it. That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. And what a time saver too. Like have everything holistic. It's this whole ounce of prevention idea. I love that. Wow. So let's talk about seeing the shift then, because this is all very real talk, right? So we're seeing the shift away from polished, perfectly scripted advertising. And here you are giving it to us for real, education up front, have conversations with real moms. And parents seem to trust someone documenting the real experience, braces mishaps and all, for more than a glossy commercial. What have you learned about this overused word authenticity, but it's the right word? What have you learned about authenticity, and where do brands still get it wrong?
I think where brands still get it wrong is trying to be as polished as possible, right? The days of matching luggage, perfectly edited, somebody who's reading a script. I think all of those are artifacts of the past because the consumer, the decision maker, they are much more discerning, right? I think people really do want to see people who are just like themselves. And so the notion of polished, everything is perfect is being rejected by consumers day in and day out. And seeing that authentic, that overused word, but really somebody who's relatable, right? I go back to us needing to earn the trust and earn the right to be a part of people's lives. The more that those individuals see people just like them, somebody who is a real person, somebody who is experiencing similar life experiences in the same way that they might be able to, but really elevating that relatability factor, that becomes a core area where marketers and brands should focus on so that the human nature of advertising really starts to come to life and that human connection starts to come to life, especially as we all enter a much more digitally centric, AI centric world.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to be thought of as the end user or as the market. We all want to be thought of as people, right? I love
That's right.
So you brought it up as well already, but let's dive into it a little bit more and let's talk about looking ahead. As AI personalizes more of the content people see and communities become even more influential, what do you think the next generation of wellness and healthcare marketing will look like? And how will brands continue to build trust when consumers have more information and more opinions than ever before?
So I think one of the convergences that we will start to see, and we're starting to see this already, but just an acceleration is what I would think we'll see in the future, is the convergence of beauty and health becoming closer and closer together, where the future of beauty is health and health becomes the new flex. And one of the things that I look forward to is in that transition is going to be the cornerstone of education as we all as people start to seek more information, searching for the facts, searching for the science that really backs up any sort of claims that come from brands. I think that's the future that we are headed towards, and a future where health becomes a priority that is more proactive as opposed to being reactive. And in fact, we do call it health care. So it is caring for our health. as opposed to really just treating symptoms. I think people are going to become much more discerning about who's bringing them products, services, experiences that are health-centric. And the second piece that I would talk about is as we look into the future, I think it's going to be a future that is much more IRL-centric as we crave that human connection and really look for brands who facilitate communities, not just online communities, but those communities that foster that in-person, true human connection.
I couldn't agree more. I'm so excited for your future. I'm excited to be there with you. This has been a brilliant conversation. If people wanted to find more about you or Invisalign, where would they go?
To learn more about the brand, go to Invisalign.com and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you so much, Kamal. This has been a fantastic conversation. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Thanks so much for having me.